The Netherlands, a small European nation, is roughly 40,000 square kilometers in size with a population of around 17 million. In stark contrast, Indonesia, one of the world's largest countries, spans 1.9 million square kilometers and is home to over 273 million people, making it the fourth most populous country globally. Despite this vast difference in size and population, the Dutch managed to conquer and rule Indonesia for over 300 years. In this video, we'll explore how a small nation like the Netherlands managed to subdue such a vast and diverse region, focusing on the strategies they employed and the impact of European capitalism on the ancient civilizations of the Malay Archipelago. The Nusantara Archipelago before Dutch colonization. Before delving into the Dutch colonization, it's essential to understand the region that is now Indonesia. The modern Republic of Indonesia did not exist before Dutch rule. The area, known as the Nusantara Archipelago or Malay World, was a vast island chain with over 1,300 ethnic groups and more than 700 languages. This region had never been fully united under a single authority. Instead, it was home to a variety of polities that had grown wealthy by controlling the sea lanes connecting China, India, Persia, Arabia, and beyond. The Nusantara peoples were not just middlemen but key suppliers of valuable spices like mace, nutmeg, cloves, and pepper, primarily grown on the Maluku Islands. Traditionally dominated by Hinduism and Buddhism, the region saw the rise of Islam by the 15th century, especially along its maritime trade routes. New Islamic sultanates, such as Aceh, Malacca, and Demak, began to eclipse the older Hindu-Buddhist Majapahit Empire. On the eve of European colonization, the Nusantara Archipelago was a vibrant mix of sultanates, city-states, local kingdoms, and tribes, all interconnected through trade. The Malay language served as the common trade tongue in this diverse, multicultural region. The arrival of Europeans in Southeast Asia. European interest in Nusantara spices was long-standing, but direct contact was minimal before the age of exploration. The Christian elites of Europe, particularly in the Middle Ages, developed a strong desire for spices from this region. However, these spices reached Europe primarily through the Islamic empires of the Middle East, which controlled the overland trade routes from Asia. The Ottomans, the most powerful Islamic state by the late 15th century, used this control to their advantage. Portugal was the first European nation to break the Islamic monopoly on spice trade routes. In 1497, Portuguese explorer Vasco da Gama set sail from Lisbon, eventually reaching the Indian port of Calicut and establishing a sea route to Asia. This discovery opened the door to global imperialism. The Portuguese soon made their entry into the Malay world in 1509 and, by 1511, had captured the port city of Malacca, effectively beginning European colonization in Southeast Asia. The Spanish soon followed, colonizing what are now the Philippines. The two Iberian powers, Spain and Portugal, united under the Iberian Union in 1580, further strengthened their colonial ventures. By the late 16th century, Spain and Portugal were the wealthiest kingdoms in Europe thanks to their overseas colonies. The Dutch entered Southeast Asia. While Spain and Portugal were busy expanding their empires, Europe was also experiencing significant religious upheaval. Protestantism was spreading rapidly, particularly in the Netherlands, which was under Spanish Habsburg rule. In 1566, the Protestant Dutch revolted against their Catholic Spanish rulers, eventually establishing the independent Dutch Republic in 1588. Eager to challenge their Iberian enemies, the Dutch began seeking their own overseas empire. In 1595, a fleet of Dutch ships set sail, following Vasco da Gama's route, and reached the Banten Sultanate in Java by 1597. Although their first attempt was thwarted by the Portuguese, they returned a year later and managed to establish a profitable spice trade, leading to a significant financial windfall. This success convinced Dutch investors to fund a larger colonial enterprise, leading to the formation of the Dutch East India Company, VOC, in 1602. The Dutch East India Company and its expansion. The VOC, one of the world's first joint stock companies, operated more like a sovereign state than a private corporation. It negotiated treaties, waged wars, minted coins, and established colonies, with its governor-general functioning like a ruler. Over the next 2 centuries, the VOC generated immense wealth for its shareholders and inflicted untold suffering on the native populations. The Dutch established their first territorial foothold in 1605, seizing a Portuguese fort on Ambon Island with the help of the Sultanate of Ternate. They focused their colonial efforts on the spice-rich Maluku Islands and the strategic port cities of Java and Malacca. In 1619, after a conflict with the Sultanate of Banten, the Dutch seized the port city of Jakarta, renaming it Batavia, now Jakarta, which became the VOC's headquarters in the East Indies. Throughout the 17th century, the VOC aimed to monopolize spice production and trade. They used brutal tactics, including exploitation, coercion, and violence, to force local populations to comply with their demands. The Banda Islands saw one of the earliest examples of this, where the Dutch massacred the native population to secure control over nutmeg production. The VOC also faced resistance in their efforts to monopolize clove production on Ambon Island. In 1643, the Ambonese rose up under a local leader but were eventually crushed by 1646. The Dutch then forced the Sultan of Ternate to destroy all clove trees on his island, securing a near-total monopoly on the spice. The Dutch success in Indonesia was due to a combination of military strategy, exploitation of local conflicts, and a relentless pursuit of economic dominance. Their ability to adapt and leverage the resources and networks of the region allowed them to maintain control over the vast and diverse archipelago for centuries, leaving a lasting impact on Indonesia's history and culture.